Through our connections of becoming these little celebritantes in the nightlife community, we got hooked up with Kaboom nightclub. I actually made a connection with one of the promoters, and he allowed us to throw our first ball at the nightclub on a Sunday night. We were able to throw it as a free ball. The second ball would have been a few months later in February of '92, the St. Valentine's Day Massacre Ball. And then our third ball that we had was As the Ball Turns, which was in July of '92. Now that would be the last ball we threw at Kaboom nightclub. Some politics started to arise. I was the one that was coordinating all three of those balls for the House Avant-Garde. I was the one that got paid for coordinating those balls. I shared the glory with my fellow house brothers and sisters, but when it boils down to it, I was the one that pulled it all together. I mean, our house members were excited because we were throwing our first ball, but trying to get people to help me pull off the last minute things was a little difficult. But anyway, things came through. All three of the nights were successful, but not successful in the eyes of the club owners because people weren't buying drinks. After that, the house had to try to put our money where our mouth was and sponsor our own function. And we did that at an arts venue in Wicker Park called Hot House. That was the night that I was announcing my departure from the House Avant-Garde to start my own house, House of Enigma. At the same time, one of my house brothers, Kenny, who is now the overall father for the House of Omni, a legendary, iconic New York house, he was branching off from Avant-Garde to start his own house, House of Elan. So House of Elan and House of Enigma were considered sister houses at the time. We ended up having a joint housewarming. Members from Elan and members from Enigma got together at a space provided, once again, by Tut. Very instrumental in the early days of helping the ball community do its teething stage, I'll put it that way. Enigma got started, we did our first ball in December '93. And then the next ball, I kind of did it as under my name back at a club called Red Dog because I had made contacts with those club promoters, people who I made contact with prior from like the Kaboom days and other nightclubs. So I threw a ball called the Goofball, and this was more of there was more of a mixture of the club kids set and the voguing kids, and it was just like a more of a mixture of people. Although our first ball at Kaboom was a pretty wide range of races and backgrounds in attendance. The problem with that was that there weren't as many participants or people who were seasoned in participating in a ball. So I tried to make categories that would entice the ball kids as well as the club kids. Actually, the last ball I've ever thrown was the Zodiac ball, and that was thrown at Ann Sather's, which became, for a little while, became ball headquarters. Kenny Omni / Elan was throwing a lot of his functions there. That ball brought in West Coast kids. It brought in the JJ Rodeos. It brought in, we had a few kids coming from New York too, and then we had the local kids, of course. The newer wave of kids that came, like I'll say the middle school or new school, came in and they felt they needed to bow down to New York, whereas the first wave of ball kids in Chicago were pretty much, we would be considered pioneers because we pretty much did till the ground and turn the soil in order for the ball community to take root. So a lot of people think the balls in Chicago, especially the newer kids, they don't think the balls in Chicago started or even got hot until 2000, which is far from the truth. They think, oh, the balls in 2000 did not bring people from New York, the Mecca, until, the 2000s. That's not true at all either. We were having people coming down, albeit, trickling down, but we had people coming down from New York. Being there as an ambassador of Vogue for Chicago, having a magazine that was bridging the club kid and ball kid communities locally as well as being here in the East Coast. Then when other people finally started being able to throw functions, that left room for me to actually start competing locally and competing and winning. My categories were Designer's Delight, of course the Vogue categories, Old Way, New Way. We didn't really have a big distinction between Old Way and New Way because we were learning any way that we could learn. But our claim to fame here in Chicago was being able to Vogue Old Way, New Way, or just combine all the elements. As opposed to when I used to travel to New York, and like at that time everybody was like, now everybody's Vogue film, but back then they were everybody was arms control. Like they didn't know how to work the floor, they didn't know how to do anything but just sickening arm tricks. But we had a more well-rounded background. Designer's Delight, which requires you making a garment. I did my only New York trophy that I ever won was for Designer's Delight. I beat out a designer who had like 3 evening gown pieces, and all I had made myself was this summer short set, a coordinated tank top and shorts, drawstring, sweatsuit material. I remember passing out a business card to each of the judges, and that, I guess, got me over.